The snowstorm arrived faster than anyone expected. One moment, the sky above the Wyoming plains was only a soft gray, and the next, thick white clouds gathered like heavy wool. Elias Ward could feel it in the air long before the first flake touched the ground. He had lived most of his life on open land, and a man who lives close to nature learns to read signs the way other people read books. The sudden drop in temperature, the push of the wind against his jacket, and the uneasy silence of the fields told him he had only a little time before the storm truly hit. Elias had driven into town earlier to buy feed and a few supplies, expecting a normal day, but now he needed to return to his cabin as quickly as possible. He stayed calm even as the snowflakes thickened, because panic never helped anyone on a long, empty road. He simply tightened his hold on the steering wheel, kept his eyes steady on the falling white curtain ahead, and reminded himself that he had survived worse weather before. The road home was long and lonely, stretching between miles of untouched land. Most travelers avoided this back route, but Elias took it often. He liked the quiet. It was different from the noisy, crowded life he once had when he worked on his family's ranch. Before everything changed, before lawyers and papers and losses, now his life was simple: small cabin, daily chores, hard work, quiet nights. He had learned to live without expecting surprises. But that evening, the storm brought him one. Through the blowing snow, Elias saw something unusual on the right side of the road. At first, he thought it was just a shape in the wind, maybe a fence post or a stray branch. But as he came closer, his eyes narrowed. The shape moved. Slowly, carefully, like someone trying not to fall. He stopped his truck, leaving the engine running so he would not lose heat, and stepped outside. The wind pushed against him the moment he opened the door. Snow bit at his face, and the world around him was nothing but white and gray. Still, he walked toward the figure. When he came close enough to see clearly, he felt his breath catch not from fear, but from surprise. It was a woman. A very tall woman, wearing a white dress that did not belong in a storm or on an empty highway. The dress was long, layered, and decorated with lace that was now stiff with ice. Her hair, pinned up in a style meant for celebration, was coming loose, and small crystals of snow clung to the strands. She was a bride. Her lips were pale from the cold, and she hugged herself tightly, as if trying to hold in whatever warmth she had left. One of her shoes was missing. Her hands shook. Elias spoke gently, not wanting to startle her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She lifted her head, her eyes unfocused for a moment before she blinked and saw him clearly. Relief washed over her face so quickly that he knew she must have been standing there for a long time, too long. "My car. It stopped," she said, her voice trembling more from exhaustion than fear. She pointed weakly behind her. Through the snow, he could just make out the shape of a small car, half buried in a forming drift. Its hazard lights were faint, blinking like tired eyes. "You'll freeze out here," he said softly. "Come on. My truck is warm. I'll help you." She hesitated only a second before nodding. Even through the storm, Elias could tell she was exhausted. Her steps slow and uneven. He placed his coat around her shoulders, his thick, heavy coat that instantly swallowed her in warmth and guided her to the truck. When she climbed in, she let out a quiet breath of relief, sitting close to the heater like a cold traveler who finally found a fire. Elias returned to the driver's side and shut the door behind him, feeling the sharp difference between the freezing air outside and the warmth inside. He glanced at the woman, who held his coat tightly around herself. "I'm Elias," he said. She opened her mouth, then closed it, as if unsure of how to speak. Finally, she whispered, "Marina." Her voice was gentle, soft enough that he had to lean closer to catch the sound. She rubbed her hands together, trying to bring back feeling to her fingers. Elias turned up the heat a little more. "I'll take you somewhere safe," he said. "There's a cabin nearby. We'll wait out the storm." Marina nodded, but her eyes filled with tears, silent ones that slid down her cheeks without any sob, as if she was too tired even to cry properly. Elias did not ask questions yet. A man learns to give people space before asking for explanations. They drove slowly through the snow, the tires gripping the road just enough to keep moving. The visibility was low. The world felt smaller, like they were traveling inside a snow globe, being shaken by a careless hand. The only sounds were the engine humming, and the soft breaths Marina took beside him. After a few minutes, she winced and looked down at her hand. Elias noticed a thin line of blood along her palm. It wasn't deep, but it was fresh. "You're hurt," he said quietly. "Let me take care of that when we get inside." She looked at him, eyes wide, and nodded. Then she whispered something so soft that it sounded almost like a sigh. "Please, don't stop." The words were not romantic. They were not dramatic. They were the words of someone who had been through something hard, someone who had held herself together for too long, someone who finally saw a bit of safety and did not want it to slip away. Elias didn't say anything in response. He didn't need to. He simply drove on, steady and calm, until the small wooden cabin appeared through the snowy haze. When they arrived, the wind had grown stronger. Elias hurried to open the door and help Marina inside. The cabin was warm. He kept the fireplace burning all winter, and filled with the soft light of several candles he had lit before leaving for town. The moment Marina stepped inside, her shoulders relaxed, as if her body recognized safety even before her mind did. Elias guided her to the chair closest to the fire. The flames painted her face in soft gold, making her look less like a stranded bride, and more like someone slowly waking from a bad dream. He handed her a blanket, which she wrapped around herself gratefully. Her injured hand caught his eye again. He took out a small first aid kit from a drawer and knelt beside her. When he cleaned the cut, she flinched slightly, and he paused. "I'll be gentle," he said. "I know," she whispered. She stayed still while he worked, her hand resting lightly in his. There was something unusual about her presence. She was tall, taller than most women he had met, and her long dress made her seem even more striking. But she looked fragile in that moment. Not because of her size, but because she had clearly gone through something she hadn't explained yet. When he finished bandaging her hand, she whispered again, "Thank you." Elias nodded and stood. "Are you cold? I can make tea." "Yes, please," she said softly. While he warmed water on the stove, Marina looked around the cabin. The place was simple but warm, the kind of home built by someone who valued peace over comfort. She watched the fire, the dancing flames reflecting in her eyes. Her breathing slowed. After a while, Elias handed her a steaming mug. She wrapped both hands around it, letting the heat seep in. They sat quietly for a time. The only sound, the crackle of the fire, and the soft whistle of the wind outside. Finally, Marina spoke, her voice low. "I didn't know where else to go." "You don't have to explain anything yet," Elias said gently. "You're safe here." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the room settle into her bones. It was the first moment of true comfort she had felt in hours, maybe in much longer. Outside, the storm raged. But inside the small cabin, with the fire glowing and the shadows moving softly across the walls, Marina felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt that she was not alone. The storm outside grew louder as the evening deepened. But inside the cabin, the world felt warmer and very still. The fire glowed gently, spreading a calm light across the wooden walls, and the shadows swayed like slow dancers. Marina sat close to the warmth, wrapped in the blanket Elias had given her. Her breath had become steadier, and the trembling in her hands had slowly eased. It was the first time in many hours that she felt her body relax, even a little. Elias took a seat across from her, not too near and not too far. He didn't crowd her with questions. Instead, He watched the fire quietly, giving her space to speak whenever she felt ready. That was his way, patient, steady, like someone who understood that some stories were too heavy to pull out quickly. Marina glanced at him a few times, almost shyly. She wasn't used to silence. Her life had been filled with noise voices telling her what to do, schedules she had to follow, plans she didn't make. But this silence felt different. It wasn't empty. It wasn't cold. It was gentle, like standing on soft ground after walking too long on sharp stones. She lifted the warm mug to her lips, taking a slow sip. The tea had a simple smell, something like herbs and mint. It warmed her throat and eased the tight knot she hadn't realized was still there. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice quiet like it might break if she pushed too hard. I didn't plan to be out there, in the snow, in a wedding dress. Elias nodded lightly. I guessed you didn't. She looked down at the blanket. I'm sorry. I must look strange. You look like someone who had a hard day, Elias said calmly. And someone who's freezing. That's all. His tone was soft, almost reassuring. Marina let out a slow breath she'd been holding. There was no judgment in his eyes. Not even curiosity pushing her into a corner. For a moment, she wasn't sure how to begin. She tried again. I left my wedding, she said softly. Or, maybe, I ran away from it. Elias kept his eyes on the fire, letting the warmth of the moment settle around them before he responded. People don't run, unless something feels wrong. Marina nodded. Something was wrong. Many things, actually. She took another sip of tea, letting the warmth guide her voice. She didn't want to rush. She needed to let the truth come out naturally, like a slow river after a long drought. My fiancé, he isn't unkind, she said. Not in the usual way people mean. He's polite. He's respected. Everyone says he's good for me. They say he's strong, dependable, successful. They say I'm lucky. Her shoulders dropped a little. But I never felt lucky. I felt controlled. Every part of my life became planned. What I should wear, what I should eat, who I should talk to, where I should be. She touched the edge of the blanket, smoothing the fabric with her fingertips. He said he wanted the best for me. And maybe he did. But his version of best always meant I had to change myself. Be smaller in some ways. Quieter. Softer. Less. Me. Elias listened without interrupting. He felt something familiar in her words, something that tugged at old memories of his own life. But this was her story, not his. He stayed silent so she could continue. I tried to make myself fit, she whispered. Because that's what everyone expected. Because saying no would disappoint too many people. Her eyes grew distant, remembering. Today, when I walked down the aisle, everyone stood up and smiled. The music was playing. The lights were bright. My dress felt heavy not just because of the fabric, but because of everything it represented. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. When I reached him, I looked at his face. So sure, so certain, like life was already decided, and all I had to do was follow. Her voice softened even more. And then I realized I couldn't breathe. Elias looked up at her gently. So you left? Not at first, she admitted. I froze. People were staring. Cameras were everywhere. Everything felt loud even though no one had spoken yet. She pressed her palm softly against her chest. I heard my heart beating so fast it scared me. I felt like I was disappearing in front of everyone, like I was becoming a stranger in my own skin. Marina blinked as tears gathered again, but they didn't fall. Not yet. So I walked away. Quietly. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I just turned around and kept walking until I reached the doors. The cold air hit me, and it felt like the first real breath I'd taken all day. She paused, wiping her cheek softly with the back of her hand. I got into my car and drove without thinking. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to move, or I'd be trapped forever. She tried to smile, but it came out small and tired. And then, the car chose to stop in the middle of nowhere. You must have been scared, Elias said. I wasn't scared at first. I was too shocked to feel anything. But when the snow got heavier, when the wind became colder, I felt like the world was swallowing me. She looked into the fire again, watching the flames rise and fall slowly. And then you found me. Elias didn't respond right away. He just nodded, letting her words settle between them like soft snowflakes, gentle and quiet. You did the right thing, he said finally. Marina looked at him with surprise. Most people would say I should have stayed. Most people aren't living your life, Elias replied. His voice was calm but certain, the kind of steady tone that made Marina feel grounded. Sometimes leaving takes more courage than staying, he added. Marina lowered her gaze. I'm not sure I'm courageous. I felt more like a runaway who didn't know what else to do. Courage doesn't always feel like courage, Elias said. Sometimes it just feels like taking the next step, because staying still hurts too much. His words settled deeply into her heart. She had never thought of it that way. The fire crackled softly. The storm outside continued to howl. But inside the cabin, everything remained gentle, safe. After a quiet moment, Elias stood and walked to the small kitchen corner. You must be hungry. You haven't eaten in hours, I'm guessing. Marina blinked, realizing he was probably right. Her stomach was empty, but she had been too overwhelmed to notice. I can make something simple, Elias said. Soup, bread, nothing fancy, but warm. That sounds nice, she said softly. While he prepared the food, Marina watched him move around the cabin. He was calm in the way people were when they lived close to nature, used to doing things themselves. She found something comforting in his quiet actions. He didn't rush. He didn't fuss. Everything he did had a steady rhythm, like he had learned long ago that life was easier when you didn't fight it. When he set the food on the table, Marina felt another wave of relief wash over her. She hadn't expected kindness today. She hadn't expected anything, except cold and confusion. They ate quietly. Warm soup, soft bread, and the sound of the fire blended into a peaceful moment that Marina wished she could wrap around herself like another blanket. After finishing, she looked at Elias again. He had been patient, gentle, respectful. She couldn't remember the last time someone had given her silence without pressure, or help without expecting anything in return. Thank you, she said again, her voice sincere. You don't owe me thanks, Elias replied. Anyone would have stopped. Not everyone, she said softly. He didn't argue. He seemed to understand. For a while, they sat quietly again, listening to the wind outside. Marina felt herself growing sleepy, the warmth of the cabin pulling her closer to rest. You can sleep here, Elias said. Take the bed. I'll use the couch. Marina shook her head. It's all right, he replied gently. You need rest more than I do. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. She truly was exhausted. Before heading to the bedroom, she turned back to him. Elias? Yes? Thank you for letting me breathe. He didn't respond with words. He simply nodded, and the expression in his eyes told her he understood exactly what she meant. As Marina lay down in the quiet room, listening to the soft crackle of the fire through the walls, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt safe. The next morning came quietly, as if the world itself wanted to move softly after the long storm. The light outside was pale and silver. The kind of light that appears when snow covers everything and turns the land into a calm white sea. Marina woke slowly, blinking at the soft glow that leaked through the curtains. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then the smell of wood smoke and the faint sound of crackling fire helped her recall the cabin, the warmth, and Elias. She sat up and looked around the small room. It was simple, wooden walls, a small dresser, a warm quilt, but something about it made her feel safe, safer than she had felt in months, maybe years. When she opened the door, she found Elias already awake. He was sitting near the window, a mug of coffee in his hands, watching the quiet landscape outside. His posture was steady, calm, like nothing in the world could shake him. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," she replied, her voice still a little sleepy. "You must have rested well," he said. "I did," she admitted. "Better than I expected." He handed her a warm mug of tea he had already prepared. She held it with both hands, enjoying the warmth spreading across her fingers. For a while they sat in comfortable silence. Then, Elias's gaze shifted back to the window, his face thoughtful. "You should know," he said slowly. "A truck came down the road earlier." Marina's heart tightened. "Looking for me?" "I don't know," he said. "It was far away, and the snow makes everything quiet." But it stopped at a few places along the route. It could be someone checking on damage from the storm, or it could be people searching. Marina pulled the blanket around herself a little tighter. Her breath grew uneven, but she stayed calm. "I knew they would look," she whispered. "He always wants to know where I am. Always." Elias nodded but didn't interrupt. He understood that her worry wasn't about danger, it was about pressure, expectations, the invisible weight she had carried for too long. "You're safe here," he said. Marina looked at him, searching his face to see if he meant it. He did. She could tell by the steady honesty in his eyes. He didn't say it like a promise of ownership. He said it like someone offering shelter without conditions. "Do you think they'll come here?" she asked. "They might drive past," Elias answered. "But they won't come inside unless we open the door. And even if they do stop, no one can force you to leave unless you decide to go." His words settled deep inside her. They were simple, but they carried a truth she needed to hear. Her whole life, people had made decisions for her. They told her where to stand, how to smile, what to say, how to carry herself. But Elias spoke in a way that gave her space. He didn't tell her what to do. He offered choices. It felt new, strange, and comforting. After a quiet moment, Elias stood. "Let's prepare for the day," he said. "Not out of fear, just to make you comfortable. Number 1. And Rensetting. Number 1. Marina followed him. Together, they moved around the cabin, adjusting curtains, adding wood to the fire, and making breakfast. The tasks were simple, but doing them together felt strangely grounding. She felt like she belonged in the soft rhythm of the morning. Once they finished cleaning up, another sound broke the calm, the low hum of an engine far away. Marina froze, her eyes turned toward the window. Elias placed a hand on the back of a chair, not on her, giving her space but still quietly supporting her. "They're still far," he said. "No need to worry yet." But the sound stirred something heavy inside Marina. The truck seemed to carry not danger but the life she had tried to escape, the expectations, the pressure, the gaze of people who thought they knew what was best for her. Elias watched her face and spoke gently. "Do you want to stay here? Until it passes?" "Yes," she whispered. He nodded and stepped to the window while she stayed back near the fireplace. The truck moved slowly along the road. Maybe a mile away. It stopped near a fence. Then, continued. It didn't turn toward the cabin. It didn't slow down near the narrow path that led to them. Eventually, the sound faded into the snowy distance. Marina let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "They didn't stop," she said. "No," Elias replied. "Not this time. Do you think they'll come back?" "Maybe. But again, no one can force you to go anywhere you don't want to go." Marina held onto those words like a lifeline. Elias moved away from the window and returned to the table. He leaned on it lightly, looking at her with calm eyes. "You have a choice," he said. "Whatever you decide, I'll help you." Marina sat down slowly. Her hands were steadier now, her breathing calmer. "What if my family thinks I made a mistake?" she asked. "What if everyone thinks I ran for the wrong reason?" "People always have opinions," Elias said gently. "But only you live your life, not them." She looked into the fire, watching the orange flames move like soft waves. "I kept thinking I could make it work," she admitted. "That, if I just tried harder, if I just changed enough, everything would be fine." "And did it feel fine?" Elias asked, not to challenge her but to guide her. "No," she said quietly. "It felt like I was shrinking. No, 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 no." Elias nodded. "Someone once told me that the right people don't ask you to become smaller. They grow with you." Marina let the words sink in. She had spent so long trying to fit into someone else's idea of who she should be that she had forgotten what it felt like to simply exist as herself. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I don't even know what I want now." "That's all right," Elias said. "You don't have to know everything today. You're allowed to breathe, to rest, to think. You've had a big day, and a big life." Marina gave a small, tired smile. "A big life," she repeated. "Yes, it feels that way." Elias prepared more tea. Moving quietly through the cabin, Marina watched him, noticing again how peaceful he seemed. She wondered how someone could carry so much calm inside them. He handed her the tea, and she felt gratitude rise inside her once more. "You don't have to take care of me," she said softly. "I'm not taking care of you," he replied. "We're just sharing the same space. That's all." But Marina knew he was doing more than that. He was giving her space to feel human again, to exist without being pushed or pulled. After a while, they stepped outside for a moment. The snow had softened into a gentle frost that sparkled under the weak winter sun. The land stretched far and quiet, untouched and peaceful. Marina took a deep breath of the crisp air. It tasted clean, honest. "Out here," she said, "the world feels big." "It is," Elias replied. "But there's room for everyone, even those who feel out of place." Marina closed her eyes briefly. She felt lighter, like some invisible rope had loosened. When they went back inside, Elias sat near the window again. "I'll keep an eye out," he said. "If any trucks come close, you'll know. No surprises." Marina nodded, her heart calmer. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Hours passed in gentle rhythm. They talked sometimes, shared small stories, cooked a simple lunch, and occasionally sat in comfortable quiet. Marina found herself laughing softly at one of Elias's dry jokes. It felt strange to laugh after such a heavy day, but it felt good too, like rediscovering sunlight. Later that afternoon, another truck passed far away, but again, it didn't turn toward the cabin. Marina watched the disappearing noise with a thoughtful expression. "I know they'll keep looking for a while," she said, "but I don't think I want to go back. Not to the same life." "You don't have to," Elias replied. "Not unless you choose to." She turned to him, her eyes gentle but strong. "Thank you for seeing me. Not the dress, not the situation. Me." Elias looked at her for a long moment, then gave a small, sincere nod. "You deserved that long before you came here." She felt that truth sink into her like warmth after long cold. For the first time in a very long time, she felt her own strength waking up again, quiet but real. The night after the second truck passed was quiet in a different way. The storm had ended, but a calm hush covered the land, as if the world was taking a long, deep breath. The cabin felt warmer than before, not only because of the fire, but because something inside Marina had finally begun to settle. She sat near the window, looking out at the pale moonlight touching the snowy ground, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 2 days. Elias was tending to the fire. He worked with the same gentle patience he always showed. Every movement was steady, never rushed, like he was guiding the flames with care instead of forcing them. Marina found comfort simply watching him. He had a way of making the room feel safe, without ever saying many words. "I think the storm gave us a gift," Elias said quietly. Marina turned from the window. "What gift?" "A pause," he said. "A moment to breathe. Not many people get that." She understood what he meant. If the storm hadn't stopped her car, if Elias hadn't found her, she might still be living inside a life she felt trapped in. She might have returned to the ceremony out of pressure or fear. Or worse, she might have convinced herself she deserved that life. Instead, she got silence. Space. A chance to hear her own thoughts without anyone else's voice drowning them out. "That pause saved me," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Sometimes the world knows what we need before we do." They sat quietly for a while. The fire glowed softly, lighting the inside of the cabin with a warm orange color. Outside, the moonlight gave the snow a soft shine, like thousands of tiny crystals. When Marina finally spoke again, her voice was gentle but certain. "I think I know what I want to do next." Elias looked at her with steady attention. "I'm listening." "I want to face my life," she said. "Not run from it, and not fall back into it. I want to choose my own steps." He nodded once, slowly. "That's a strong decision." She smiled a little, though it was soft and weak from all the emotions she had carried. "I want to call my family," she added. "Tell them I'm safe. Tell them I need time. And that I'm not going back to the wedding." "That's your right," Elias said. She looked down at her hands. "I'm scared they won't understand." "They might not," he said honestly. "Not at first. But understanding isn't something you can pull out of people. Sometimes it grows slowly." Marina breathed out, slow and deep, like letting go of something heavy. "Would it be all right if I stay here until morning?" she asked. "I want to call them when the sun is up." "Stay as long as you need," Elias said. "This place isn't going anywhere." Her eyes softened. It meant more than he probably realized. Having a place where she wasn't rushed or judged was a new feeling. They talked a little more small things, gentle things. She asked him how he came to live alone in the cabin. He told her about losing the family ranch, not with bitterness, but with a quiet acceptance. Life had pushed him into silence, and he had learned to live there. But hearing her story made him realize he hadn't been the only one carrying weight. "You remind me of someone who's been holding a heavy door shut for too long," Elias said. "Maybe now you can finally let go of it." "I hope so," Marina whispered. When she grew tired, she returned to the bedroom. But this time, she didn't close the door fully, just left it slightly open, so the soft light from the fire could reach her. She fell asleep quickly, without fear, without pressure, without the tightness that had filled her chest for months. The next morning arrived gently. A soft sun peeked out from behind thin clouds, warming the snow with a pale, golden glow. Marina woke with a clearer mind than she had felt in years. She knew what she had to do. When she stepped out into the main room, Elias was already awake, standing near the stove heating water. He looked at her with a small, steady smile. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied. "Today. I think today is the day I start again." He nodded. "Whenever you're ready. The radio phone is on the table." It was a simple device Elias used when cell service was low. Marina approached it slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. She took a deep breath before dialing her family's number. The call started with surprise on the other end, then worry, then questions. Marina spoke calmly, telling them she was safe, telling them she needed space, telling them she wasn't going back to the wedding. She didn't explain everything. She didn't need to. Her voice carried strength. And that alone was enough. When she hung up, she felt drained but lighter, like releasing a weight she had carried far too long. Elias was seated at the table, waiting. Not hovering, not pushing, just there. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," she said. Then she paused. Scared. But free. That's how new beginnings usually feel. She gave him a soft smile. "I need to go into town," she said slowly. "Not back home yet, but somewhere I can think. Maybe stay at a small lodge for a little while." "I can drive you," Elias said simply. "You've already done so much. It's no trouble. And the roads will be icy. Better we go together." Marina nodded gratefully. They gathered her things, what little she had, and prepared the truck. Before they stepped outside, Marina paused at the door and looked around the cabin one last time. The warm light, the quiet comfort, the peaceful air, it had become a place of healing for her. "Thank you," she whispered, though the cabin itself couldn't hear her. But Elias did. They drove slowly along the snowy road, the morning light growing brighter with every mile. Marina watched the white fields pass by, thinking about how different the world looked now. The snow wasn't frightening anymore. It was beautiful. When they reached the small town, Elias parked near a quiet lodge. Marina took a deep breath. This was the next step. A step she chose. She opened the door but turned back to him before stepping out. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You gave me a place to breathe, and you didn't ask anything from me." "You didn't owe me anything," Elias replied. "That's what kindness is. It doesn't ask." She felt her throat tighten gently, but this time not from fear, from something warm. "If I ever find myself lost again," she said softly, "I hope life brings me back to this place." Elias looked at her with eyes that carried more sincerity than words could describe. "This cabin will always be there," he said, "and so will I." Marina stepped out of the truck, holding her small bag. She walked toward the lodge door, each step slow and certain. When she turned for one last look, Elias was still sitting in the truck, watching her with a peaceful expression. It wasn't a goodbye full of grand promises or dramatic endings. It was simple. Marina entered the lodge with a new sense of strength. Her life was hers again, and even though she didn't know every step ahead, she knew this. She had escaped a path that wasn't meant for her. She had found a moment of peace in a warm cabin during a cold storm. And somewhere, out on the snowy plains of Wyoming, there was a cowboy who had shown her that kindness could change the direction of a life. With that thought, she began her new beginning quietly, confidently, and entirely by her own choice.